Joseph Herrera appears to be resolving a Jace the Mind Sculptor. Or, no, there is one in play already. So, what are we? We're going to see a Green Sun Zenith for 1 here. Green Sun Zenith getting a Sylvan Safekeeper. Interesting. Former Ollie Rad's Invitational card making an appearance.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people consider Domri to be Ollie's unofficial invitational card, but the actual one, right there, you can see Sylvan Safekeeper, a likeness of Ole Rod before he was conscripted into the military, as is the case in much of Europe. And
a wizard riding a tarantula, something that I'm sure he is very excited about.
Yeah, well, I mean,
quite the artwork.
He is the Spider Master. For those of you who don't know, Ole Rod was the Pro Tour Columbus 1 champion with the so-called Spider deck, a deck full of 2/3 spiders for 3.
A deck so underpowered by today's standards, it's almost comical to mention.
Well, you know.
At the time, though, you know, Wizards was still learning on how to make sets.
I still think that was a great format. I mean, particularly when you think about like a format where Keldoran Outpost was a part of the format, and here he wins with spiders.
Yeah. Ollie Rod, a Hall of Famer, one of the first class of I believe he was in the first class of Hall of Famers, along with John Finkel.
Supreme Verdict. You can't counter this.
So Supreme Verdict takes care of Ollie Roddy's invitational card and the Noble Hierarch, but Jace the Mind Sculptor is still in play here.
One of the things, if you are sitting in a matchup like this and there's an unbothered Jace sitting out, it can just bury you.
Yeah, and Joseph does have several counter spells. He has a Spell Pierce, a Force of Will, another Green Sun Zenith, and he's activating Jace for the Brainstorm effect now, drawing a land, Source Splasher, and a Spell Pierce. So can Joseph get some action going? He does have a Green Sun Zenith, but, you know, again, what he really wants is Natural Order for Progenitus. So right now he is not close to getting that, but looks like he's going to put 1 land on top of his library.
I mean, as long as Joseph just makes a land drop every turn, I expect that it's going to be very difficult for Jack Fogle to get back in this game.
Yeah, as long as, you know, multiple activations of Jace, it's tough for the control player to deal with that. But, you know, Joe just has to be patient right here and manage his resources correctly, and he should be fine. Green Sun Zenith for 2 here, so potentially he has Quasali Pride Mage, Scavenge Use as an option, Tarmogoyfs. A lot of options for Joseph at 2. Let's see what he ends up going for. He's looking through the graveyard, maybe thinking about whether or not Quasali Pride Mage is, rather Scavenger Use is a good choice. But nope, looks like Tarmogoyf is going to be the card there. Looking through the deck, and not a bad choice, you know, for a 2-drop. For a green 2-drop, Tarmogoyf is pretty good.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much better than that.
One of the funny things, I always like looking at the scratch marks on people's deck lists. At the beginning of the day, Joseph Herrera had 4 Tarmogoyfs registered, and he scratched it off and put down 3. I'm curious what that card is he cut to make room for it.
Maybe he just couldn't find the 4th. Wouldn't be surprising. Legacy is one of those formats where sometimes the card choices come down to availability, not so much, you know, actual choice. So Joseph Herrera, Green Sun Zenith for a Tarmogoyf, and then passes the turn back. He does have access to Force of Will. He can pitch a Spell Pierce, but beyond that, he doesn't have any other blue cards in his hand. So he has some protection for that Jace the Mind Sculptor in case Jack has a Jace of his own.
Jack untaps, or I think he's got the touch rule, deciding if he really is untapping. Yep, he's untapping. Draw.
And looks like he has 6 mana in play. That Polluted Delta does appear to be in play, not in his graveyard. So, yep, he moves his lands together now. And he has access to 6 mana. We know he has a Dark Confidant, and looks like a Dark Confidant, Snapcaster Mage, Source of Plowshare, and a Stoneforge Mystic. So Stoneforge looks like it's going to come down here, searching for possibly Batterskull or Jeté. Batterskull it is.
There we go. Now we have from Twitter, and if you're not following SCG Live on Twitter, you should be, a comment that Safekeeper was also the first invitational card, if I'm not mistaken. Almost. Ole Rod won that first invitational, but he didn't submit a card for years until later he realized, Man, it's really cool having your picture on a card. Hey guys, can I do that finally? Is it cool if I do that? And then Safekeeper was printed many years later. I believe, and I am not 100% certain of this, I believe the second invitational winner, Darwin Castle, is the first person to have had his likeness actively put on a Magic card in the form of Avalanche Rider for the prize of the Invitational.
It wasn't Mike Long for Root Water Thief?
It might have been Mike Long for Root Water Thief.
Root Water Thief was Nemesis.
Yeah, and
Avalanche Riders was... I think Avalanche Riders might have been first.
Yeah, I believe it was Avalanche Riders.
Yeah, so it was Legacy. So, oh no.
Urza's Legacy, right?
Yeah, it was Urza's Legacy. So Avalanche Riders was first.
Yeah.
So back to the game, we have Joseph Herrera, still in pretty good shape with active Jace, but he is contending with a Stoneforge Mystic and a Batterskull next turn. A 4/5 Tarmogoyf comes over, but it's going to get Plowshared from Jack Fogle. Does Joseph want to fight for this?
I don't know that he cares very much. Hello, maybe he does.
Looks like he is.
With all of these lands open from Jack Fogle and all of those lands in play, that Spell Pierce is not particularly exciting. And I believe we're going to see how this one plays out.
So
we still see
we have a Snapcaster Mage there.
Yeah. And he has allowed the Force of Will to stop the Swords to Plowshares. Jack considering the Snapcaster here.
Snapcaster on Plow. He would have to sack that Polluted Delta. And looks like he has a Swords to Plowshare as well as a... Is that a Path to Exile in his hand?
There are Paths to Exile in Joseph Herrera's sideboard.
Looks like he boarded in Path as another way to deal with Batterskull tokens and Stormforge Mystics. So Jack drops to 9 from a Tarmogoyf hit. And Joseph still has a Brainstorm along with the Jace the Mind Sculptor in play. Jack won't be able to put that Batterskull in play now, but...
we see a fetch, and we might see an Ambush Viper trying to kill Jace.
Yeah, we could see Snapcaster Brainstorm this turn. Pretty good sequence for Jack because he'll be able to cast the Brainstorm and... or he could go Snapcaster Swords to Plowshare. Either way, getting that Snapcaster in play is going to be huge because then he can attack the Jace the Mind Sculptor. So Snapcaster is getting cast. Let's see if Joseph... We know Joseph doesn't have a counterspell right now. He does have a Brainstorm, but will he Brainstorm in response? Looks like he's thinking about what he has left in his deck. He will let the Path to Exile... He will let the Swords to Plowshare resolve. Joseph gains 5 life, and now are we going to see a Path on the Snapcaster? Yes.
There it is.
So Snapcaster gets Path to Exiled, and Jace the Mind Sculptor looks like it's going to survive and attack.
It lives to fight another day.
Does Jack going to be able to draw a Jace of his own?
He's got a Bob.
And it looks like he did.
Is that off the top?
It looks like he did draw a Jace off the top, so we can see a Jace the Mind Sculptor enter play along with a Dark Confidant. So pretty good rip there from Jack. He'll be able to Legend Rule the Jace the Mind Sculptor and then play a Dark Confidant to get some more card advantage for the following turns.
And if he knows, if he remembers the deck list, he will know there are no Dazes to be feared, so he can tap out for that Dark Confidant.
So it looks like we're going to get a Brainstorm in response. Joseph's going to sack the Misty Rainforest to clear the top of his deck away. He did Brainstorm with Jace the Mind Sculptor before, so he knows what's there.
Spell Pierce, Flusterstorm, and Force of Will, the only cards that Joseph has access to that can stop this Jace.
Yeah, Flusterstorm would do it because Jace is one spell, the Brainstorm would be the second, and Flusterstorm would be third. But the question is, did Joseph board in Flusterstorm?
Yeah, I'm not saying he did, but we'll find out.
Let's see.
The only cards in his 75 that could do it.
So it looks like he has a Croson Grip and a Brainstorm in his hand. He's going to cast Brainstorm. Yeah, it looks like it's an FNM Croson Grip in his hand.
Joseph. Now, remember, all of this fight here, it's not to win the game, it's just to stop Joseph Herrera from having this terribly advantageous card, Jace the Mind Sculptor, in play. If he doesn't fight for this, Joseph loses a huge edge that he has over his opponent, but if he it's still not any oh, there it goes. Goodbye, Jace.
Wow, so he decides not to fight for it. And Dark Confidant now enters play. Jack just has a batter skull in his hand, which Joseph knows about. So it looks like we're gonna have to see a brainstorm here to try to get some action.
Main phase brainstorm. Knight of the Reliquary, Forest, and Caracas.
Looks like it could be a Caracas, yeah. So Knight of the Reliquary gives Joseph at least a threat there to work with, but again, he's going to be able to use that Misty Rainforest to shuffle away some of those lands, get a fresh draw next turn, but he's still facing down a Dark Confidant, which is going to threaten to get Jack some more card advantage over the following turns, although Jack is at 8. So
I think one of the things I like about his play to not fight over that Jace there, his odds of being able to hit it, as Caracas hits Caracas, his odds of being able to hit it are so low that if he uses the brainstorm, he'll just brainstorm lock himself slightly because he won't be able to reshuffle until the next turn, and it makes the brainstorm much weaker.
Yeah, so Jack just has a 2 lands in his hand, 2 flooded strands, along with a batter skull. We know that Joseph does have a Corrosive Grip as an answer to that batter skull. So let's see. Jack is likely might just tap out for a batter skull right here.
There you go, batter skull with a germ.
So this is going to be a big
germ?
We will. Looks like
Mike Flores.
Mike Flores is a standard germ here. So looks like we're going to see a Corrosive Grip from Joseph dealing with that batter skull. Yep, batter skull goes to the graveyard here. Now, how big is Knight of the Reliquary? Is Jack going to be forced to chump block here? Do we know? Can we get a size here?
And we're gonna find out momentarily. It's gonna be big.
Knight is an 8/8, so yes, Jack
one.
will be forced to block. He also has a Misty Rainforest in play if he needs to make it bigger. So Jack is gonna be forced to chump block here. Yep, Dark Confidant jumps in the way of Knight of Reliquary, and Joseph passes the turn back. So Jack, can he draw an answer here? He draws. It is just a Jete. Unfortunately, Jack does not have an answer, and Joseph Herrera ties up this match at 1-1.
We're gonna go to a harrowing game 3.
And yeah, you know, game 3 here. Joseph does have that natural order combo in his deck. Jack Fogle has 2 copies of Supreme Verdict in the sideboard. He also has 2 copies of Liliana in the Veil as potential answers to Progenitus. But again, that game, Progenitus really didn't matter. It all came down to Jace the Mind Sculptor and then a timely Knight of the Reliquary.
Now, one of the things that you saw here, that Joseph Herrera and I believe we saw Jack Fogle both having Force of Wills in their deck. The difference between the Esper Blade matchup versus Bug and the Esper Blade matchup versus Nobant, in the Bug Blade matchup, it's kind of a grind. They're going to grind against each other, and then one of them is going to draw long-term advantage out over the opponent. Now, that is a part of the match here as well, except for the natural order element that Joseph Herrera has is so powerful that both players want to maintain Force of Wills so that they can fight over it.
Yeah, it's much different to keep in Force of Wills against a deck that has Hymn to Torox, but when you're playing against a deck that has natural orders and can potentially combo you out on turn 3, you can't really afford to board out your Force of Wills. So, you know, because Joseph, even if he's on the draw, he could potentially get a turn where he's like, turn 1 Noble Hierarch, turn 2 Vendilion click you, getting your Supreme Verdict, or a preparation spell, and then turn 3 clearing the way for my Progenitus to come into play with natural order.
Absolutely. Now, one thing, a quick correction from earlier, Flusterstorm is not just a really awesome spell pierce. It can only hit instants or sorceries. So when I suggested that earlier, that was just a little minor brain fart there from me. But Joseph Herrera here, looking at this sideboard, gosh, the Path to Exiles we know he brought in.
Jete probably coming in as well as another way to deal with opposing Jetes, not to mention just being decent in this matchup. I like the Corrosive Grip too. Corrosive Grip's a great answer to Batterskull. I also like the Sower Temptation, to be honest. I mean, being able to steal those Dark Confidants, obviously it's scary if you flip a Progenitus, but with only one in your deck, I think it's a reasonable play there.
Now, I'm just kind of amused. If I saw Jack Fogle's germ correctly, I saw a 0-0 on his Mike Flores germ, which would mean that he altered it to be that. Because Mike Flores is a human 1-1.
Well, it's a good alter. I mean, it's an accurate alter, I'd say. If you're going to alter any of those cards, Mike definitely deserves to be a 0/0 germ token.
Well, the thing to think about with that, though, he's always got the batter skull, you know, or he's always the size of, like, was it swamps or dead creatures? You know, he's always going to be basically holding a huge weapon that's really powerful.
Yeah, he's always more impressive than he actually is, like the actual Mike Flores. So Joseph Herrera ends up tying this game up, and we're going to game 3. Jack Fogle will be on the play this time, so he has the potential of going turn 1 Deathrite Shaman and ramping out to Liliana. Liliana the Veil can be really huge in this matchup. Again, it's one of the ways he can answer Progenitus. It also can chip away at Joseph's hand. So Fogle can get one of those draws where he's like turn 2 Liliana, turn 3 Jace. That can be huge. But you know, let's see if Deathrite Shaman shows up for him. Joseph doesn't really have a good answer to Deathrite Shaman. He doesn't have you know, he has 4 copies of Swords of Plowshare, but he doesn't have like Abrupt Decays. Swords is pretty much his only answer. And again, Fogle has cards like Dark Confidant and Stoneforge Mystic that he also wants to answer, so he's putting a lot of pressure on those Swords of Plowshares.
Yeah, I mean, was there a confirmed sighting of Path to Exile?
Yes, he definitely had a Path.
Well, I mean, one of the things Jack Fogle has is he's got 3 basic lands in his deck, so it's not like Path to Exile is without a cost.
Yeah, he will be ramping up Jack, so that's the other thing. You're boarding in those paths. If he goes turn 1 Deathrite Shaman, Path isn't really an answer to Deathrite Shaman because you're still going to be ramping him up. So you might not be able to get him to 3 mana on turn 2, but you will be able to get him to 4 mana on turn 3. And Jace the Mind Sculpt will be that much faster, that much closer to getting into play. So I think that I would say Jack has a little bit of an edge here just because he has the ability he's going to be on the play now. If he gets a Deathrite Shaman, he'll be a little ahead of Joseph, but Joseph does have more mana ramp guys. He has 4 copies of Noble Hierarchy. He also has 3 copies of Green Sun Zenith, which can get Dryad Arbor, which are basically a pseudo mana ramp effect on turn 1. So he does have more ways to jump the mana curve than Jack does. So being on the draw isn't nearly as detrimental for Joseph as it would be for other players.
A fun little mention from Twitter at Vivid Meadows shares that his Mike Flores token was altered by Adam Prozac to be Adam Prozac.
I did see that one.
And it's a 9/9. So Adam Prozac, definitely a 9/9 wizard. Watch out. He hits hard.
Yes, he hits hard in the Swiss, and then in the top 8 he just falls off the table and doesn't go anywhere. Unfortunately for Adam, top 8.
You've got.
I'm only saying this because Adam is literally sitting right over there.
Yeah, you've got no end of commentary for your fellow commentators.
Yes.
Adam Prozac is a StarCityGames.com commentator, of course, and Mike Flores has been behind the microphone more than a few times as well.
And one of my good friends, by the way.
Yeah. So don't pull out the pitchforks yet, folks.
Not yet. Do you know Mike Flores has actually been best man at 3 different weddings?
That's impressive.
That is I have to say, that is impressive, right? I don't know many people that are best men at that many weddings, and potentially a 4th. He's going to be a groomsman at Patrick Chapin's wedding this summer, so a lot of people love Mike Flores. Very popular guy.
At the end of every article, he tells you to.
Yes, that is true. So Joseph Herrera here, being forced to mulligan here in game 3. Jack on the play decides to keep his 7. Joseph Herrera not as happy, so Joseph Herrera on the draw and backpedaling a little bit here, having to go to 6.
If you're just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with OSIP, and we are doing the semifinal match here, the final semifinal match here. One of these players, Jack Fogle or Joseph Herrera, will go forward to fight Lauren Nolan, the StarCityGames.com Invitational champion from not that long ago. I believe that was in Atlanta that he was the champion, but I'm not 100% certain of that.
A couple seasons ago. So this past Atlanta champion was of course Jerry Thompson.
Yep.
2-time Invitational winner. So Joseph Herrera, let's see if his 6-card hand is worthy of a keep.
One of the things that's happened this weekend is a few comments about the first season of the Pro Tour. The Pro Tour used to be called the $1 Million Pro Tour because it gave away $1 million that year. Well, our bosses at StarCityGames.com, Pete Heffling, he's giving away $1 million this year. So I think that you can see the birth of a new kind of private Pro Tour here in the StarCityGames.com circuit, and it's something that you can get involved with as well. We travel all over the country with these events, so if you have an event coming near you, make sure you get to one. These are great times.
Yeah, and they're getting bigger and bigger. I mean, we had over almost 500 people here for Standard. A couple of weeks ago in Somerset, I was playing, and we had more people in the team event than we had in Standard. It keeps getting bigger and bigger.
That was Indianapolis that Nolan won in 2012 in June, almost a year ago. And we see opening up here Joseph Herrera, the first real action with a Noble Hierarch.
And, you know, great news for Joseph. He did mulligan, but he's able to get a little mana advantage on Jack. And he also has a Knight of the Reliquary, which is, you know, we saw a very heavy hitter in this matchup. And looks like Jack's going to sack his lands here. Is he going to find something useful? Doesn't need to really get rid of the Noble Hierarch just yet. It's not nearly as annoying of an effect as Deathrite Shaman. So, you know, we saw in earlier matches, Deathrite Shaman means instant removal from the opponent. But Noble Hierarch, it's a mana ramp, but it can't affect the graveyard. So, not quite as devastating, but still pretty good.
More land in hand. Force of Will, Knight of the Reliquary, Swords to Plowshares, another Noble Hierarch.
And Plowshare
Boom.
taking out Deathrite
Get
Shaman.
out of here, Deathrite. Slow down, Jack Fogle.
So you can see those mana guys, very important. Deathrite Shaman in particular. So Jack Fogle, I believe he just has a Swamp in play. And but no, he does have other cards. He does have a Flooded Strand and a some Marsh Flats. Are we going to see a Stoneforge Mystic enter play this turn? Or a Dark Confidant? A number of 2-drops. Efficient 2-drops coming from Jack Fogle here.
Windswept Heath, Knight of the Reliquary, and Force of Will. All that's left in Joseph Herrera's hand.
So, yep, we get an island. So Jack is playing around Wasteland. He has a basic island and a basic swamp in play. So I'd venture to guess now Dark Confidant is going to come down, and yep, here we are. Now let's see, can we get a... oh, so Joseph did have the potential of casting a Jace the Mind Sculptor there, but doesn't draw anything. He could... Solar Temptation, another potential draw there, but instead we're going to see a Knight of the Reliquary come down and potentially another Noble Hierarch. So
we see that Knight of the Reliquary cast first, and it's interesting, Joseph Herrera essentially plays his card out, playing around the days that isn't there. I think that's just habit, you know? It's one of those things that you start doing in Legacy if you play a lot. It's worthwhile to get into those habits as long as you don't, you know, make that the wrong choice in the wrong moment. Here, there's no cost to making that habit be part of what happens.
yeah, you don't want to make bad decisions like that. You don't want to have it affect your decision making to the point where you're making a bad choice. But I agree with you. Getting into those habits of just playing correctly, like attacking before you cast spells in certain situations, I think it just helps you in the long run.
Now, I believe there are 2 land in Joseph Herrera's graveyard. Oof.
Swords to Plowshare was revealed off Dark Confidant, so Jack Fogle dropped to 19.
Look at that. Jace, 2 land in Jack Fogle's hand.
So are we going to see something impressive here? Oh, Vendilion
it's
Click.
not bad. It's not bad.
Not bad. Can take at least one of the Jace the Mind Sculptors, but...
In comes the Noble Hierarch with 3 Exalted triggers. That's a 3/4 once the creature clicks or connects.
Let's see if Joseph just passes the turn here and doesn't even bother casting Jace. Yep, so it doesn't look like he's going to cast it on the upkeep. Nope, he is, so...
After the draw step,
unfortunately
here comes
for him,
Vendilion Click.
Unfortunately for him, Jace the Mind Sculptor
has a friend,
yeah. And another Jace the Mind Sculptor. So at this point, I think you just take the Vendilion Click. Fortunately, because Jack was playing around Wasteland, he doesn't have access to double blue. He has all basic lands in play, so he's not going to be. He wouldn't have been able to respond to the Vendilion Click with his own Vendilion Click. So at this point, you know,
we've been watching that Dark Confidant just eating things up here.
Yeah, I actually really like taking the Vanilli click here, just because even if Jack does tap out for Jace the Mind Sculptor, there's not really a good thing. There's not really anything good that he can do with it. He could potentially bounce the Vendilion click, which he'll pretty much have to do. But that would leave the Jace down to 2 counters, which means that any of the Noble Hierarchs could be lethal with the
And
Exalta triggers to the Jace. So
now,
he'll be either forced to sacrifice it or lose it to the lose his Dark Confidant.
and it looks like Joseph agrees with you, and he does get rid of the Vendilion click. And is that a Supreme
Wow.
Verdict? Oh my goodness gracious.
Supreme Verdict, a huge draw there. Now he doesn't even need to cast the Jace. He can just cast Supreme Verdict, wipe out Joseph's board, leave him with just 2 mana in play, and then start unloading Jaces on him. So,
Ouch.
great draw. Great draw from Fogle there. Plays a Tundra, and yeah, Supreme Verdict is just huge here. Completely devastates Joseph's board. Yes, he's going to lose a Dark Confidant in the process, but who cares? He's going to be able to go Ponder and Jace next turn.
3 mana destroyed from Joseph Herrera. All of that early work wiped out.
Joseph with a lonely Sylvan Safekeeper now. He has 1 Force of Will in his hand. That's not going to be good enough to stop a Jace. Wow.
No.
Also, now a Liliana. So many options for Jack now. Jack can cast Jace the Mind Sculptor and Ponder. He can cast Liliana and just down ticket to make him sack the Sylvan Safekeeper, or he can just play Liliana and up ticket and force Joseph to discard one of the cards in his hand. So let's see what Jack decides to do here. It looks like Liliana is going to come down here. Is he going to up ticket or down ticket here? Looks like he is going to force Joseph to sacrifice that Sylvan Safekeeper, and now we're going to get a Ponder. Let's see what he draws here. Looks like it's 3 land. Looks like one of them could be a Wasteland. If that's the case, he might want to keep them all. So yes, he does keep them all and just passes the turn back. So now he's going to be playing some serious resource denial. Next turn, he can play Jace the Mind Sculptor, Wasteland one of his lands, uptick the Vendilion click. So pretty dominating position here for Jack. Joseph just with a Forcible in his hand. Fogle should probably uptick the Liliana first, just to make sure he doesn't get Forcible. Looks like he realizes that. Oh no, he played around Spell Pierce.
Yep.
You can play around both though. But Joseph does not have a second blue card.
And he already knows what's on top there. Gets rid of it on his own side, and
looks like now he's going to uptick. Forces
goodbye
Joseph
Force
to
of Will.
discard
There
that
it
Force
is.
of Will.
Wasteland gets rid of the only blue source.
Yeah.
Joseph Herrera here.
Joseph facing down.
Crumbling.
Facing down 2 Planeswalkers with only 1 card in hand, 1 land in play. And now Jack draws a Creeping Tar Pit for an additional win condition if he chooses to have one. Yeah, I think you're okay to just uptick. You could discard that Creeping Tar Pit, you don't really need it. Discard the Jace instead, that's fine. We're going to have bounce the Noble Hierarch and play Creeping Tar Pit past the turn here. So what does Joseph draw? He just draws, and it is a land for the turn. He passes back. Noble Hierarch will likely get eaten by Liliana this turn. Perhaps we'll see a Fate Seal. No, bounce. Oh, bounce, uptick. Force him to discard it. And then now we're going to attack for 3 here. So Joseph basically not going to be, he's going to have to just start casting any spells in his hand, because otherwise he'll lose them to Liliana. Draws a card for Jack, draws a card for the turn. Looks like he's going to uptick Liliana. Joseph discards a Force of Will. Now he can activate Brainstorm. He can Brainstorm, he can Fate Seal. He's going to attack with the Creeping Tar Pit. Just so many options for Jack.
Fate Seal it is. And the Tar Pit knocks Joseph to 15. 5 more attacks is all it's going to take. Will Jace or Creeping Tar Pit create the victory?
Yeah, at this point, that's really the only thing in question. So Jack upticks once again. Joseph forced to discard yet another removal spell. Now Creeping Tar Pit clear to attack in, and another Fate Seal from Jace the Mind Sculptor. And
to the bottom, whatever it is.
goes to the bottom. So Joseph Herrera, again, off the top of his deck, draws, passes, We've seen this story before. Jack draws a card for his turn. Gonna uptick Liliana. Oh, now potentially, I guess, Snapcaster Mage.
You can cast, if it is a Snapcaster, you can cast the Snapcaster before the uptick.
Yep. So Snapcaster Ponder.
Then after it's targeted, but before he casts it, upticks the Liliana. Goodbye, Flusterstorm.
Oh, wow.
There we
The
go.
Flusterstorm. So Ponder now gets cast.
Yep.
Scribe for 3.
Thoughtseize not so great. Is that a Vendilion
It's a
Click?
Vendilion Click, yes.
Maybe not even.
And he draws I believe, a Path to Exile. And now Fate Seal and attack with
See what you
Creeping
got?
Carpet.
Leaves it there. Bad news for Joseph. In with the Creeping Tar Pit. Oh,
The
casting
Lingering
Souls. My bad. I guess he wants Jace to win the race.
So Jack passes the turn. Again, Joseph draws a land for the turn. So it's a way to deal with Creeping Tar Pit at least. So it looks like Jace will, in fact, win this game.
So now we've got Tiago Chan, 2 Spirits, a Creeping Tar Pit, all trying to end Joseph. But will Jace or will those creatures end Joseph?
I think we're going to see Liliana Ultimate. I like activating the Creeping Tar Pit because it forces the Wasteland to get activated. And then you split up the island and the savannah.
Here they come. Wasteland on the Creeping Tar Pit. Joseph
Yes.
agrees that he'd prefer to die to Jace.
Ultimate Liliana, perhaps? No cards in Joseph's hand, so there's no need to uptick it right now. Might as well split up those lands.
He flashes back the Lingering Souls.
Somewhat of a flawless pick. Oh, Jack doesn't bother, so there's the Tower Guard.
And I guess he's going to kill him with creatures.
Yep, Jace doesn't get there, so down tick Liliana, and now everything comes over.
Dun, 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 dun.
Jack Fogle wins 2-1. Esper Deathblade defeats No Bant. And now we have Esper Deathblade Mirror Match Finals.
That's right. Now the Boogeyman face-off repeats itself. This morning we had the same thing happen. The standard Boogeyman Reanimator. It was Junk Reanimator versus Junk Reanimator. And now for the Legacy event, it is going to be the Legacy Boogeyman, and that is Lauren Nolan versus Jack Fogle.